Hey there, Squirrel Army, how's it going? For today, I want to talk about a card that fell under the radar for me, and I think for quite a lot of people, Surge of Salvation.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alright, so this is a 1 mana instant, and you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn, and you prevent all damage that black and or red sources will deal to creatures you control this turn. So it's not in 0 decks, it's in like 3% of the decks that it could go in. So, it's not in no decks, as I sort of said, but it certainly isn't in as many decks as I think it probably should be at this point of it being released. It's a uncommon from March of the Machines. So, this is the problem, I think, with a lot of cards that come out now, is that cards like this, and a lot of other cards, really, that I think that some people have talked about this card, maybe, I don't know. But the thing is, it's just like, there is so many cards and so many sets coming out now. Like, there's a set coming out in a week or two, or whatever, Lost Caves of Ixalan. And I'm sure there's going to be cards from that set that we're going to be, like, looking back at, in a few weeks' time and going, oh man, how did we miss this card? And this card came out, probably 5 minutes ago, but whatever. It feels like it came out sometimes like a millennia ago, and it also feels like, oh, it only came out 2 seconds ago, because, like, that's how fast they, just, like, lobby and yeet new sets at us nowadays. But, again, there's very powerful effects that I think is very useful. Like, obviously, like, it draws some comparisons to Heroic Intervention. So it's not probably quite as good in some ways as Heroic Intervention, but it is 1 mana, and if you're not in green, I do think it is pretty darn decent. Even if you are in green, I think it is still pretty darn decent, because again, it gives you and all your permanents hexproof, and then you prevent damage from black and red sources to your creatures. So, that's pretty good. Like, I don't think that there's that many black things that do damage to your creatures. Like, there is a couple, but they're not very playable, I don't think, really. But obviously Blasphemous Act, and there's a bunch of other red burn damage spells that, people play to kill creatures. So that's alright. Plus, again, it gives you and your permanents hexproof, so it not only stops, your Swords to Plowshares and your Path to Exiles and things like that, it stops people targeting you personally. And, like, if people just, like, if you cast this and people just so happen to forget, oh yeah, it prevents damage and it gives all your permanents hexproof and it also gives you hexproof, like, there's a lot to text to this card, and there's a lot to remember and a lot to forget, and it's easy to forget, oh yeah, you have hexproof, and all your permanents have hexproof, and you prevent damage from black and red sources to your creatures. So, like, all of that is really good for 1 mana. I looked at a card recently that's 1 mana and protects 1 permanent that's in white. And if it's an artifact, it gets +2/+2. And I was thinking, oh, that's not too bad. But then I saw this, and I was like, Jesus, how did we miss this card in amongst all the other stuff? But it's so easy for a lot of these cards, as I sort of said, to get swept up or get forgotten about or whatever. But again, like, some people are in fact playing it, but not a huge amount of people are playing it, as I sort of said. But it's very, very versatile and very, very good, because again, even with preventing damage from a red or black source, like black, yeah, sure, whatever, that probably is irrelevant for the most part, but certainly red is very, very, very relevant. But still, like, hexproof is very relevant ability. You just get to save all of your stuff, and you get to protect yourself as well. So if somebody Aetherflux reservoirs you don't take any damage. And then they can't target any of your stuff either as well. So, like, again, there's lots of upsides and things like that. Like, it doesn't stop literally everything, but it's pretty darn decent. I'm not a huge fan of these sorts of spells a lot of the time, because I'm always thinking, oh man, like when I don't have it in hand and need it, it's always seemingly like the next turn after the wrath or after my things get killed or whatever, that then I draw it, and then it's just a dead card that's not doing me any good. But when you have it, it's really, really good. But it's always me having such poor luck. It's like, oh cool, here's this thing that I needed last turn, and now it's completely irrelevant. Oh cool, that's another brick for me. Yay, yay. And whatever, but that's the way it goes sometimes, especially for me. I don't know what it is, but it's just the way it is. But still, it's a pretty darn decent card, and I do think that more people should be, like, hearing about this card, and that's why I'm, like, do these videos sometimes and go, man, when I'm researching cards and going, wow, would I put this in a deck? Oh, man, I see that this card isn't seeing much play, or whatever, so I might go and say, hey guys, you should check this card out and maybe give it a whirl in your decks. Like, so, it does a whole lot of things that you kind of want to do. Like, so, yeah, I think it's pretty darn decent. But again, you guys can let me know your thoughts down there in the comments below. What do you think about this card? Am I super wrong? Is it just poop, apparently, or whatever? It does 3 things for 1 mana, and that's pretty darn decent, especially for an uncommon. So I don't think it's that bad at all. I think it's pretty darn decent. But yeah, you guys will let me know your thoughts, hopefully, down there in the comments, and I hope you've enjoyed it one way or the other, and I hope you will join me again in another one.